Hey guys, and welcome back. We got a good one for you today. We're going to be walking you through how you can utilize Microsoft Fabric and Microsoft OneLake to enable you to do multi-cloud or cross-cloud analytics. So let's not waste any more time here and let's get right to it. So we're logged in here to the Microsoft Fabric portal, and the first thing that I would like to do is come into my data engineering experience here. And then before I do anything else, I just want to make sure that I am connected to the right workspace. So once I'm brought into my workspace here, we can see that I have one artifact here, which is going to be my employee lakehouse. And then there are two associated artifacts here for my default data set and the SQL endpoint. So I am just going to jump into my employee lakehouse really quick. And once I am brought in here, we can see that inside of my lakehouse, I have one table here called employee. So real quick, here is our use case for today. So I am a data analyst that works for a company called AdventureWorks. And I have been tasked to do some analytics around employee pay based on different things such as a employee's team, department, or some demographic data such as their gender. So as we take a quick look here at our employee table, we can see that we have some very basic information here from a employee ID, department ID, login, birthday, marital status, gender, etc. So once my analysis is complete here, I need to be able to present this to our executive teams so that they can have a good understanding of how the different pay scales and pay ranges are implemented today. So the first thing that I can tell here is that for a given employee, I can tell what department ID they belong to, but I have no details here to tell me what particular department ID actually represents. So the first thing that I'm going to need to do here is I'm going to need to get data so that I can map this particular ID to an actual department name. And lucky for me, I know exactly where that particular data is. So that particular data is not stored inside of my Microsoft OneLake, but it is stored inside of Azure, and it is stored inside of Azure DataLake Gen 2 account. And if I jump over here really quick to my Azure portal, you can see that my data is actually stored as a Delta Parquet file. So that is just going to make things easier for me now. So let's jump back over to my Lakehouse view, and what I'm going to do now is I am going to utilize a feature of Microsoft OneLake, which is called shortcuts. And basically a shortcut is a way for you to connect to data sources that are either external to your particular workspace, but still inside of your tenant's OneLake, or they could be data sources that are external. So since my particular data is stored inside of Azure Data Lake Gen 2 account, I'm just going to click on this little ellipsis button right here by the tables menu. And then I'm going to create myself a new shortcut. And I'm going to choose the external sources and choose Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. And then once this menu is brought up here, it is going to ask me for a URL to my Gen 2 account. So I'm just going to paste that information here. It's going to be a new connection. I'll give it a name here. Let's just call it ADLS. And then I'm going to log in using my organizational account here. Then I will click the next button, and then it's going to ask me for a shortcut name here. So I will just call this department, and then I will click create. And just like that, we can see that I now have a new table here called department. And if I click on my department table, we can see that I have information now for all of my different department IDs here. So there is a name field and a group name field. Now, we can always go back and rename these two fields here just to make sure that they are more relevant, as this name field here is going to be my actual team name and the group name is going to be the department name. But for our particular use case, we'll just kind of leave this as is. So let's jump back over to my employee table real quick. And now the next thing that I noticed from here is that since we are tasked to kind of analyze employee pay, we don't have any kind of information here to tell us what each particular employee makes. So I need to go out and get a data set that has that particular information in it. And luckily for me, I know exactly where to get that data from. Now, that particular data not only is going to be outside of my Microsoft OneLake, but it is also outside of Azure. So if I jump over here really quick into AWS S3, we can see that I have a bucket out here called Fabric Sample Data, and then there is a container for it called Employee Pay. And inside of that, we can see that we have a Parquet file and a DataLake folder here. So once again, that is going to ensure that whenever I need to bring in this particular data to Microsoft OneLake, it's going to automatically bring that data in as a new table. So once again, let's jump back over into my lakehouse. And once again, I'm going to create myself a new shortcut. And this time I'm going to choose Amazon S3. And I'm going to put in the URL here for my S3 bucket. And then I'm just going to give this a new connection name. And I'll just call this AWS S3. And then I'm going to get my access key. And I'll place that here. And then I'm going to get the secret access key next. And I will place that here. And I will click on the next button. And then it's going to ask me for a shortcut name here. So I'm just going to call this Employee Pay. And I will also do Employee Pay here. And then I will click on the Create button. And then I am brought back to my Lakehouse screen. So I'm just going to refresh my tables here. And just like that, once again, we can now see that I have a new table here called Employee Pay. And if I click on that table, I can see that we have a employee ID and the salary column for these particular tables. So now I should have all of the data that I need now so that I can do my analysis. And just to kind of recap here, we have our employee table, which is natively stored inside of Microsoft OneLake. And then we have our department table, which is externally stored in Azure DataLake Gen 2 account. And then I have my employee pay, which is stored externally inside of AWS S3 bucket. All right. So now that all of my data that I need is here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come up here to the top right here, and I'm going to change from my Lakehouse view, and I'm going to change to the SQL endpoint. And then once my SQL endpoint pulls up here, we can see that all of my different tables are listed here in this warehouse view. So the first thing that I actually want to do here is I'm going to come down here to the model tab. And the model tab is just going to allow me to create a data model for my 3 tables here. So I'll just pull some of these up into view. And then I first want to create a relationship between my employee table and my department table. So I'm just going to take my department ID column and I'm just going to drag that right over here. And then this is going to be a many-to-one relationship. So this is all good here. I'm just going to confirm that. And then I'm going to link my employee table with my employee pay table. So I'm going to take my employee ID column and I'm going to drag and drop this right over here. And this is actually going to be a one-to-one relationship. So everything is good there. So I will click confirm. And now we have our data model in place here. So the next thing that I can start to do now is I could go out and create myself a new report so that I can start to create visuals here so that when I have to meet with my executive team, I can have some visuals here to support my actual data and help with the storytelling process. So I'm just going to create a few basic visuals here really quickly. And as we can see, within a few minutes time, I have been able to create myself some visual charts and graphs here to help me with the storytelling process of how our different pay ranges work across different departments or genders. So obviously for your own particular use cases, you can kind of tailor your visualizations here to meet your actual use case. But I just wanted to kind of walk you guys through how you can set these things up so quickly. And all of these different visuals here are all based on data sets that is inside of Microsoft OneLake, inside of Azure DataLake Storage Gen 2 account, and an AWS S3 bucket. And everything just works together with no issues, no latency, anything like that. So this shows you the power of Microsoft OneLake and how Microsoft OneLake is truly the first multi-cloud data lake. Well, that's it for today, guys. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. And before you leave, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, guys. Peace.